left, right.
All right, coming at you back from Manhattan. Today's topic of the podcast is the difference between city living and country living. A little long-winded, in my opinion, on our parts. Hear us out. I made some major changes in my life. I'm going to share some of the details, and that's coming from somebody who's been in New York City and in Manhattan for the greater portion of the last decade. So big changes. Let me know what you think in the comments. Looking forward to hearing what you got to say. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, we are live. Welcome to episode 55 of Sip Talk. I'm coming at you from the countryside of New Jersey, which is kind of our topic right now. James, the Bosnian Boswell, coming at you live from Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm in an echoey room. Do I sound echoey to you?
You do.
Definitely sound echoey to myself. In this new house in New Jersey, freshly wired up with Wi-Fi. And I'm in an empty room, effectively. There's a desk.
Where exactly in New Jersey are you?
It's Bridgewater, New Jersey. Really nice.
Right.
Last night, it's 40 minutes door to door from my office. I drove it this week.
It's not bad.
But big life changes. I'm going to pour a drink, a strong one, get into it in just a second. What are you drinking down there?
I'm going with the Milwaukee's Best Ice. I kind of been hitting it a little bit harder off stream these last couple of days. So tonight is like I had pizza and then home team barbecue as my meals for today. So the heartburn's already kicking in, and couple that with like 4 or 5 nights of drinking, 2 of which were moderate to heavy. I need to tail it back a touch.
Yeah, we're the Milwaukee's Best. I'm gonna make a Cuba Libre, and
A what?
Your Cuba Libre.
Whenever I hear that, I think of the scene in from Cocktail.
Oh yeah. A Cuba Libre, for anybody listening, is a rum and coke. Basically, I'm going to throw in some bitters and like a little splash of bitters, very light.
You want to explain the scene from Cocktail for the people who haven't seen the movie?
The scene from Cocktail, Tom Cruise he's looking for a job in Manhattan, gets a job in New York City. He actually wanders into an Irish pub, which actually is Fridays in Times Square, oddly. Now, I don't know, it probably was back then. Wanders into an Irish pub and gets hired. I don't even think he was a bar back. I think he was kind of straight to bartender. And
that's the first unrealistic thing in the movie.
Exactly. Either way, he's fielding orders on a busy Friday, Saturday.
And it's like his first night working.
Yeah, he's never bartended before. He figures he'll figure it out on the fly. You know, spend enough time at bars, you could figure things out. But there's some complex drinks, and there's also some drinks with crazy names. A Cuba Libre, not a crazy name, not a complex drink, relatively common, but it is just a rum and coke. A lot of people order rum and coke, but either way, somebody orders this thing from him, and
the lady goes up and she says, "Hey, can I have a Cuba Libre?" And he's like, "What?" She says, "A Cuba Libre." He says, "Look, I don't know what that is." And she says, "It's a rum and coke." And he says, "Well, why did you just say that?"
He also called her a bitch too.
I don't remember that part, but sure.
But great movie, one of my favorites. I always wanted to get that Cocktails and Dreams neon light. All right, almost done with this drink.
I've always wanted to walk into a bar and order a red eye.
Yeah, doesn't it have a raw cracked egg in it?
Yeah, it's like beer and Bloody Mary mix, vodka, and like a cracked egg. And you want to get the egg so that it's like floating in the middle of the beer so it looks like an eye.
So somebody just said you got to have lime in a Cuba Libre, which
yeah.
I've got a fresh squeezed lime in there if you can see it. I'm going to take a sip, and then I will tell you what's going on. Crazy life changes. Really kind of wild, in my opinion.
So I'll preface with, for the greater portion of the last decade, I've been living in a luxury high-rise building. I don't think it's uber luxury, but relative to here, in a high-rise building, um, doorman, pool, whole shebang, really nice. Up until about 6 months ago, I was driving a Porsche 911. James, this is going to rock your world in a second. Recently relocated to more or less the countryside of New Jersey. And last night I bought a pickup truck.
What? Dude.
So literally, it's purely for work purposes, and the house needs a lot of renovating. So the plan is to work on the house. I want to talk about real estate and what drives people to live in the city, what drives people to live in the country and in the suburbs. I mean, this is more suburbs than countryside.
It's country compared to New York City, to Manhattan.
Anything is country compared to New York City, and I'm constantly lost out here. It's almost physically painful for me to not know my bearings. Like, I don't know which way is west, north. And so driving around here, I get really just confused and lost. And some people just follow the GPS, don't think anything of it, just drive around. For me, I like knowing which way I'm going, which roads go where. And I'm completely lost out here. Do you know that the way the highways work, or even the kind of main drags, you can't take left turns? There's barriers everywhere.
Oh, that's annoying.
Oh, God. So, I mean, I got lost for almost an hour the other night on the motorcycle. I went out to buy some beer. Here's another difference in New York versus New Jersey. Anybody who's in other states, obviously, maybe you won't be surprised. In New York State, you can go to the liquor store and buy liquor and wine, but you can't buy beer. You can go to the grocery store and you can buy beer, but you can't buy liquor.
Can you buy wine in grocery stores in New York State now? It used to be that you couldn't.
I think it might be only like under a certain alcohol content. All I know is if you're buying wine in a grocery store in New York, which you can do, but I know that it's not very good wine.
Okay, because I remember at one point you couldn't buy wine in a grocery store, full stop.
Yeah, it's relatively new over my lifetime that I found that you can buy wine in a grocery
My frame of reference is 12 years old, so.
Okay, yeah, basically so is mine probably, but because I'm Manhattan's different, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Grocery stores, but here I went out to find a gas station, grab some beer on Saturday night because I was moving, and I was on the motorcycle and it was freezing cold, and I didn't have GPS, so I looked at the map and then I went out en route and I got lost. And then I was trying to cross the highway, and I just kept circling and doing loops and unable to cross the highway. And I was freezing my balls off. I didn't realize this until yesterday, that the whole time I was looking for a gas station, which I never found. But I realized this yesterday, had I found the gas station, they don't sell beer at gas stations in New Jersey.
What?
They sell beer at liquor stores. So the only place you can buy beer, wine, or liquor is at like a specialty liquor store in New Jersey. So, again, just
Can you buy beer at a grocery store?
No, not that I have not seen. I know you can't buy it at like a CVS or a Duane Reade or a Rite Aid. I've looked in those places. It's an odd law. It's just different to have 5 minutes away. You have one law that contradicts another law.
Pennsylvania is different. It's completely different from the other two states too. Pennsylvania's liquor laws are annoying. To me, the difference in your ability to buy alcohol across the different states is really fascinating. Because like in California, you can buy liquor in a grocery store. In Texas and Louisiana, there's drive-through liquor stores.
Yeah, but there's also dry areas, places that don't sell anything at all. So, but what I wanted to talk today, because I'm strangely very content with where I am in life and what I'm doing, and this for me is very much almost like a passion project. Living in Manhattan has been so miserable over the last 8 months. I took a video.
Why?
I took a video today. I was going to post it, but I walked outside of my office, and there was a guy that was having an argument with himself. And there were people trying to walk by that were terrified of the guy because he was loud, dirty clothes, long, raggy hair, just having an argument with himself. I don't know what about. Yesterday when I was walking to work, it was 9 o'clock in the morning and walking down the block, it's freezing out. And there was a guy fighting himself, physically fighting himself and having an argument with himself, which is scary because you may walk by this guy and the guy looks at you, you make eye contact, and then he's trying to fight you. Constantly seeing reports of people being attacked in the streets, just wild shit that's going on. The benefit of living in a city is that at 10 o'clock at night, I can call down to a liquor store or open an app on my phone and they'll bring 2 bottles of wine. I can get empanadas at 4 o'clock in the morning. I can find a hookah bar to go to at 2 a.m. You can meet people, you can stand at a bar, you can jump in a taxi. Right now, none of that exists. And while I do see this move as a pretty permanent move, and like I said, I'm very happy with it. I think people will be surprised how fluid where they live is. And as a real estate agent, I realize I do tons of moves and I see people on a regular basis who are just moving for the hell of it. Moving isn't necessarily a super permanent thing, but like I said, I see this as a pretty permanent thing. I'm very content out here, but it's crazy from living in basically Midtown Manhattan to living. I can hear the only noise I can hear right now is crickets, which I haven't heard in years, especially outside my window. So it's strange, and it's a big adjustment in life. Quarantine, actually into the quarantine, I was driving a 911, and now I'm driving an F-150. So
Never thought I'd see the day.
Me neither. I didn't. The thing is, you can rent. I need to do work here, so you can rent them from like Home Depot and stuff. But I only have a motorcycle, so when am I going to drive my motorcycle to Home Depot in the snow and then go rent a truck?
No.
So that's what's going on. I want to build a case for living in the city. I want to build a case for living in the country, and obviously, to each their own. Really, I don't think there's one place is a better place to be, but I definitely see value in living in both. What would you say? That you live in the suburbs in Charleston?
Yeah, it's a pretty hard yes.
A pretty hard yes. Okay, well, that's the middle ground between.
It's an apartment complex, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how it could get. It could probably be slightly more suburb-y, but it's definitely not rural and it's definitely not urban. Yeah, I'd say it's kind of like light suburbs, where I'm trying to think of a good example of like a more suburban area. I guess if you think about just like all the different like residential plots that exist off of like slightly main highways where it's just, like such and such drive in a cul-de-sac and then go down another block and it's such and such drive too in a cul-de-sac. So there's stuff like that that's close to me. But exactly where I live. How could you describe where I am as anything but suburbs?
Yeah, that you have some suburban neighborhoods where you have cul-de-sacs, and you live in an apartment complex which has a pool and tennis courts, and volleyball courts, and a barbecue and a hot tub.
Yeah, they got rid of the tennis courts.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Why would you get rid of a tennis court? It's what do they turn it into, a parking lot?
Not even.
I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to build a tennis court actually, and I have the space for it. I'd like to build a tennis court. It's basically the property that I'm on now. It could be subdivided into 4 different plots, different places. So
you got a fair bit of land along with it.
Yeah, and there's a flat area, and that was previously for like horses. So, and there's also a little barn which I plan to turn into a gym. And also, that is another thing about the city. There was a gym in my building which has been shut down for coronavirus. So, and then the gym there was a notice on the wall 3 months ago outside of the gym. I think I told you this. They owed $172,000 in back rent.
Because they still have to pay their rent even though they're not making any money.
Which is part of my complaint. I did a little rant online today about how the government, the New York State government and the city government are telling people that the kids can't go to school. But what does that mean? I have people that can't come to work now because they have to be taking care of their kids. And there's no comprehensive solution from the government. The government's not paying these people so they can hire childcare.
Because the state governments don't have money and the state governments can't run deficits.
Yeah, exactly. State government can't run deficits. So now you have a federal issue, but it's not a federal issue. It's a people issue. And
well, it's a federal issue because they're not taking care of the people. Because you've got
they do nothing. Ultimately, it's a people issue because the people are the ones that suffer.
Well, yes, but the issue is like if we want to get this virus under control, then we pretty much know what we have to do, which is probably to some degree shut things down again. And in order to do that, it requires economic sacrifice because it means that some people aren't going to be able to work. Some businesses aren't going to be able to make money because they're not going to be able to operate. So is it fair for us as a society to ask selective sacrifice based solely on the industry that you selected? And the answer to that is no, it's not fair. So how do we go about making this fair? And the easy answer is that we need to find a way of compensating the people that we're asking to make these sacrifices, because it's not fair for some people to have to bear the more burden than others for something that is ultimately societally kind of equally, the blame is equally assignable. Like we could get bogged down in the weeds about who's more responsible for the spread of coronavirus or whatever, but that's not productive. The point is pretty much everybody in society is equally responsible for handling this virus. And if we're going to ask for selective sacrifice for equal responsibility, then we need to also have selective reimbursement for the people that are sacrificing more. And that's what's not happening right now, is that they're not giving the stimulus out. And so we're asking people to make sacrifices that really can't. A lot of these businesses were already hit hard once back in March, April, May. They've just started to recover. And at least in March, April, May, there was some programs out there. There was the PPP, there was EIDL loans, there was various state subsidies and stuff like that. Now that's all gone. That's all been used up. So these businesses that were operating on a shoestring with support are now asked to shut down again. And oh, by the way, there's no support coming. How can we ask people to do that? Why are people angry? That's why. And they're right. And everyone's right here, but it makes it so that everyone's also wrong.
As a business owner, I completely understand. We got some money, but also it was a loan.
Well, the PPP wasn't.
But I didn't get very much PPP money because it's payroll protection program, and everyone that works in my organization is an independent contractor. So I did not get much PPP. What I did get was an EIDL loan, which is a loan and needs
30-year note.
Sure, but it's basically a mortgage with a good interest rate. It still needs to be back.
That's exactly what it is.
And
a portion of which is forgivable if you don't take PPP. But you took PPP, so the full amount of your EIDL loan is going to come due over the next 30 years.
Yeah. All right, we gotta get back on track. I need some benefits. So if you guys are just tuning in, or if you've been paying attention, we're talking about the benefits of living in the city versus the benefits of living in the country, and we'll throw some suburbs in there just for the mix. But I could definitely give you a list of benefits of living in the city. I've been selling city living for over a decade. And
all right, let's start with the city then. Pros and cons of the city. Pros, go.
Unfortunately, right now, some of this is suffering because of coronavirus. But like I said, it's nice to have an ever-expanding pool of takeout and delivery food at hours that are not available in the suburbs. When I go to upstate New York and it's 8 o'clock at night, and they're like, yeah, sorry, no one's taking orders right now. And you're like, but it's dinner time. How are we supposed to eat? So that's the food options, also the restaurant options. In the bigger the city, the better the restaurants. The more diversity in restaurants, the higher the skills are of the chefs. And
Function of competition.
yeah, exactly. And that may not be across the board, but I think that's, you would say that competition is going to bring.
Yeah, as a general rule. I would also say that in a city, not just availability of food, drink, entertainment, but really in a big enough city, you're going to be able to find a community of people that are like you, and it can be whatever interest you have. And the more niche your interest, the bigger the city you're going to need to find to be able to have some kind of critical mass of people that will get together and do it. But like, for example, in Charleston, there's uh, for a while I was really interested in the board game Go, which is like Asian an Asian strategy game. And in Charleston, we tried to start a club, and at our peak, we might have had 6 people.
Really?
Yeah, at our peak, regularly we would our peak regular show people that would show up was about 3.
Yeah.
And in New York City, there's 2 or 3 Go clubs that each have like 50 to 100 members that will have like regular turnouts. And it probably more, I don't know. But the point is, in New York City, to the same travel distance in terms of time, it took me about 15 minutes to get to where we held the Go Club. If I were to travel 15 minutes in New York, maybe a little bit longer by subway or whatever, but I could get to a place where there might be 80 or 100 people in the room that are all as passionate or more likely more so than me about this, in the United States, niche hobby.
Well, I think passion is a pretty extreme word.
There's some people that are super into this game, dude.
No, I realize that. I just wanted to pause on passion for the board game. I'm not a super passionate person, so I'm not super extreme with much. Apathy over passion, really, for me.
You hear that, ladies?
That's terrible sounding. But I will say also, yeah, the number of people around you in a city definitely can be seen as a positive or a negative, but it's easier to meet people.
Dating in the city is way easier because options.
Dating in the city, and also not being bored. A long time ago, I went through a breakup and found myself not having anywhere to go. I had recently moved to a new apartment in the Heights. Did you ever go to that apartment in Harlem?
No.
So I recently moved to this apartment. I didn't know anything to do. I was basically going home after work and just bored as fuck. And a bar opened up 2 blocks from the subway, 2 or 3 blocks from the subway. And instantly everybody just congregated at this place from the neighborhood. And I just meeting new people every single day. Good for business, good for relationships, good for friendship.
What bar was it?
Harlem Public.
Oh.
That was back in 2012, 2013.
Yeah, been there a number of times.
Great place though, and it was cool because in the neighborhood there wasn't much like that, and you just had this great group of people that were there just looking for something to do. So that was cool. But you don't quite. Also, bars work differently in the suburbs and in the rural areas because you have to drive. I could just walk by. I could just walk by, pop in. We got a comment about neighbors being nicer, I believe, in the suburbs. I'll tell you something weird about New York City. Not recently, but 4 or 5 months ago, I ran into one of my neighbors in the hallway, and he said hi and introduced himself. And instantly I was like, fuck, like maybe I should move to a different floor in this building or something. In New York, I had to explain this to my mother, who's a pretty social person. She'll be in the grocery store and she'll talk to somebody, and that works in the suburbs. It doesn't work in a place like New York City. In New York City, with the population density extreme that it has, people don't talk to each other, and they really mind other people's personal space. So you might be right up on somebody, Whereas if you're in a grocery store in the suburbs, you're like, oh, how are you? You know, happy Saturday. Or what, I don't know what people talk about in the suburbs yet. But in the city, if somebody's talking to you in line at the grocery store, that person's a weirdo, or they're about to ask you for money. Or
Yeah, that's when I go grocery shopping, I'll have headphones in specifically so that way like people won't talk to me.
yeah, but in South Carolina, people will talk to you in the grocery store. So that's the thing about New York City. I would give it a plus.
Depends on what kind of person you are. If you're like me and you don't want to be talked to in the grocery store.
Sure, and I think people are becoming more like that actually as a society. But you know, you walk down the street and somebody will be crying and having a terrible day, and you're like, all right, we give that person space. Like, whereas if it was anywhere else, and if you're walking down the street in the suburbs or you know in South Carolina somewhere, and someone's crying, you're gonna be like, oh my God, are you okay? You know,
Well, somebody else might. I probably wouldn't.
but yeah, but the point that I'm making is one of my neighbors on my floor, it's a 40-story building. One of the neighbors on my floor introduced himself, and I was like, "Fuck, that's a little close to home." Like now this guy knows me. Like now, fuck. But just I guess you probably can't understand it unless maybe you can, but I don't think I'd be able to understand it if I hadn't lived in the city. Just how uncomfortable it is to like meet your neighbors because you really respect each other's privacy, given you have a sheetrock wall separating you and them. So
yeah. You got like 3/4 of an inch of sheetrock and like 3 inches of air.
Yeah,
separating you and somebody else's life.
Another big thing about this city is you have this incredible cultural diversity, and that extends to food. It extends to just meeting different types of people. I really, really dig the what's the word I'm looking for? Not just the diversity, but like the authenticity of the cultures. You know, we went to school with Chinese people, Mexican people, African American people.
Yeah, all three of them combined.
All three of them combined, yeah, really. And
I'm saying like we had one Chinese person, one black person, one Mexican in the entire fucking school.
No, yeah, I don't actually know any Chinese people. I know
there was
Korean people
from our school.
But
there was one Chinese guy on my volleyball team. He was a year or two below us.
Okay, yeah. So, but also though, culturally, we all shopped at the same stores, and we all pretty much ate the same stuff for lunch. There wasn't a lot of cultural diversity, and it wasn't as authentic because it was a bit more whitewashed or watered down.
With the exception of, I'd say, the Italian.
In upstate?
To a degree.
I mean,
I'd say that was probably the most authentic.
But if you take like your New Jersey Italian or your Long Island Italian.
No, that's different, yeah.
That's not an Italy Italian. It is, but it's not. It's, you know, it's got a bit of a tweak to it. So, but point is I think you get a lot more cultural authenticity in cities, and especially in big metropolitan, you know.
Oh, sure.
New York, LA, maybe Miami.
San Francisco too.
Yeah. So, but if anybody who's watching live right now wants to give me some pros or cons of living in a city,
I can give you some cons.
All right, I'm watching the comments, but I'm listening to your cons.
So cons, just noise. Is there New York City? The times that I've stayed with you, the one thing. So living in the suburbs, it's relatively quiet. I live relatively close to a highway, so I get a fair bit of road noise or whatever, but that's incomparable to the amount of noise that just comes up off of the street at all hours of the night, be it sirens or people yelling or dogs barking or dogs barking at sirens and people yelling at the dogs.
I can't sleep with the windows open, and I'm a decent way up in the building. Like I'm not like ground level or second or third floor. I'm decently up, and I was, and I can't sleep with the window open. And the biggest thing is when a big truck goes by and hits like some potholes, and it sounds like fucking seismic. It feels like seismic activity.
Yeah.
which it could very well be. But yeah, the noise, the sirens, the people shouting, the dogs barking, and
It's constant. It never stops.
it's also getting worse because you now have crazy people in the mix on the streets, and that's what I really don't like right now.
All right, so that's one con is the noise. The other one I would say is the cost. It's generally much more expensive to live in cities. New York being a prime example, is everything costs more. Rent, food, utilities, gas if you have a car, even just keeping a car, paying for parking, have a place to put the car.
I'll give you some parking. I'll give you some car and payment information. So the tunnels cost anywhere from $550 to I think $1550. Tunnels and bridges, and I know George Washington Bridge is pretty expensive. Lincoln Tunnel is pretty expensive. Queensboro Bridge is still free, which is nice. But $550 to like $1550.
Yep.
Parking a car, the average rate for a garage per day is probably $45 to $50. Sometimes you can get a little bit better deals. Sometimes, especially if there's an event nearby. I used to park on the west side in Midtown near the Javits Center. If there was an event, it could be like $75 a day. And then a monthly parking spot typically will range in the $500 range, which, there's some cities where that's what a one-bedroom apartment costs. So parking is super, super expensive. And fuel, the gas station near my house, I think for regular, right now, not my house, my apartment. I'm now in a house. The gas station by my apartment, as of last weekend, the regular cost of fuel is $4.99.
That's 2.5 times more expensive than down here, because right now it's like $190 to $199 depending on what part of town you're in.
Yeah, and New Jersey is definitely cheaper, and they pump it for you, which is another weird law, like the liquor laws that.
New Jersey and Oregon are the two states that do that.
Yeah, and I heard in a debate in my office that the reason they pump it for you and still do that is because they're trying to keep people employed.
Yeah, there's a union, I'm pretty sure.
It's very strange that it just doesn't make, it's like a horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah, is that a job you really want? I'm going to sit here and breathe gas fumes all for 8 hours a day?
No, you're out it's fucking negative 10 degrees, you're pumping gas. And I mean,
yeah.
And the gas, the gas stations don't make that money on gas, that much money on gas.
No.
And now that you pay at the pump, most people aren't forced to go inside and get sold on impulse buys like candy bars and gum and stuff like that at the register and lotto tickets. So, just while people are telling me their gas prices, $2.82 in Sacramento. I missed another one. There's another. It was like
really? That low in Sacramento? It was higher when I was there a month ago.
Maybe that was over here. $1.57 here, Southern Belle. I don't know Southern Belle where you are, but
probably closer to me.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So what were we talking about? You're talking about cost.
Cost. Yeah, just cost across the board is going to be way higher.
They keep jacking the prices of the taxis and adding all these surcharges. So when you get in a taxi, it's instantly like $4.25. And if you want to go 3 blocks, you're paying $6 minimum, which is just wild. But my commute to and from the office was $10.76 a day in a cab, average. Most of the days when there wasn't much traffic, it was $10.76. Now it's like $17 because there's a whole bunch of new surcharges that came through. We got $1.97 in Jersey and $3.19 in the Bay Area, California. $1.87 Palm Beach. I'd love the people to just give me their gas prices.
Bring it on, man.
So, but the cost of, and also do you know what the taxes on parking in Manhattan?
No.
18.75%.
That's them raking tourists.
So you actually get a discount as a Manhattan resident, but that's only at your monthly parking garage.
Yeah.
So
Right. As I said, I called it. That's them raking tourists.
yeah, it's bad. All right, what else? Give me some more negatives and
I would say kind of parallel to the noise is just the daily crush of people, and it's hard to just feel like you can get away. That if you want to be in a place that isn't crowded and everything like that, and maybe that's just like the spectrum in me saying like there's too many people here. Wherever I go, I walk out, and as soon as I'm on the sidewalk, it's just people everywhere.
I'm a bit ADD, so I feel you on that. I sometimes have difficulty walking and holding a conversation because I'm paying attention to everything that's going on around me. People are walking by, having conversations. That loop is going through my head. I'm watching which way they're going to go while they're walking, trying to predict which way this person is going to walk as they're crossing. Somebody stops ahead of me. I slow down and effectively change lanes in the sidewalk. It's very overwhelming. I will say though, and it took me some time to figure this out, but I also used to run a lot when I moved here. So I got to learn the city, and I got to learn the quieter areas and the places where you could find some peace and some tranquility. And it's not as peaceful and tranquil as being in the fucking forest.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like the most peaceful area in New York City is not even going to compare to the quiet that you have now.
One of my favorite movies, Donnie Darko.
Oh, great movie.
He's Donnie Darko, high school kid, meets this girl, asks her to go with him, which means like they're going out, they're dating, and they're walking home from school one day, and they're walking through the park, and he like tries to kiss her, and she's like. She kind of turns her head, and he's like, "Oh, you don't want that?" And she's like, No, I do, but not right now." And you're like, "Okay." And then the camera pans out, and there's a guy in a tracksuit smoking a cigarette, and she's like, "Yeah, it's just weird because the fat guy in the tracksuit smoking a cigarette is watching us." So, like, there's an element of that in New York City. Like, you're never away from that fat guy in the tracksuit. There's always going to be eyes on you. And like I can tell you from having an apartment in a high-rise building surrounded by high-rise buildings and not wanting to have my blinds and curtains closed 24/7, like there's a certain amount of just exposure you have to be okay with. And if you want to have an argument in the street with whoever you're with, you have an argument and there's nowhere else to go. You have an argument in your apartment, your neighbors are going to hear you. People walking by the apartment hallway are going to hear you. You definitely are sacrificing an extreme amount of privacy. And given you're sacrificing that privacy, but also people are, to a degree, a bit tuned out anyways.
Right, but I think that what you just talked about with sacrificing privacy by living in the city, the response that you were talking about earlier about how people in New York City naturally respect privacy, I think that those two are completely interrelated. Is that because everyone knows that like they're sacrificing privacy by living in the city, then they kind of try and find whatever ways they can to retake some of the privacy by honoring it to others and expecting the same gesture paid back towards them.
Yeah, but I felt like the city was closing in on me. And I do I commute every day, even through quarantine. I went to the office every day to run things, and I felt like I needed more space, and I wanted to be able to, have a yard and, maybe have some workout equipment because I need actual weights. Like I can't get a pair of 25-pound dumbbells and like keep any muscle mass in my body. I need like actual 100-pound weights, be able to bench press hundreds of pounds and squat hundreds. You can't do that in a home gym with some fucking elastic cables. So I needed the space, and I want the space. I can't wait for you to come visit and show you around the property.
Well, now that you're in New Jersey, I might actually be able to visit because I don't think Jersey's got the quarantines that New York City does. So I could fly into Newark.
and then you'd be 18 minutes from the house, which would be cool. So
Yeah, and I got vacation time that I badly need to burn. So
that's what's got to happen. That's what's got to happen. So give me a couple more negatives on the city, and then I want to kind of delve into the countryside and suburbs a little bit because
I think I've really covered the main ones of the city. I think there's one other positive that we haven't really covered in the city, which is when it comes to earning opportunities, career advancement, and stuff like that. You're going to be able to find the job in the field that you want and have a higher ceiling of what you can reach in the city, more likely than not compared to other locations. There's always exceptions to this.
no, but
For certain industries, you have to be in the city. If you want to work as a stockbroker, if you want to work in finance, you really only have like 3 options in this country, and that's going to be New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. To some degree, LA. But like, you're not going to be able to be a stockbroker in Peoria. It's just not going to happen.
very true. But yeah,
Same thing with like acting. If you want to be an actor, you got like 2.5 options really.
you got to go where they're filming. You got New York, you got LA, and you got Georgia, you got Atlanta, and that's it.
Yeah, I give Atlanta the half point.
Yeah, but that's growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, I was also going to think like another half point for like Miami and Southern Florida area. But yeah, if you want to get found, if you want to have an agency that's going to get you in auditions and stuff like that, it's really New York and LA. Because if they're filming somewhere, if they like you, they'll fly you there. Who cares? But to get found, you need to be where the people who are making the picks for the next movies are, and that's New York and LA.
Yeah, they're not going to fly you in if they don't know about you. So
Right.
But no, that's entirely accurate. The job opportunities are insane, and the ability to build on something. You could start your own store selling fucking snap bracelets in fucking Soho and make a killing. Like you could open a snap bracelet store if that's your passion.
You can specialize in a city because there's enough people there that you're going to be able to find enough people that are interested. Whereas if you're trying to do some kind of a niche industry in the country, well, the chances that if there's even one person in this rural town that has even heard of what you're doing.
But also getting on their radar. In the city, you can just put a sign in the front of your store or a Craigslist ad.
Yeah.
Getting on the radar of somebody in the local area in your city is definitely it's definitely a challenge. I mean, in your city, in your town, or whatever you might call it.
I'm going to go with one more positive for cities. 2 more positives, actually. One positive with cities is that generally public transportation is very good. So you don't need to have a car, and it's easy to get around a city relatively quickly and relatively inexpensively. So that's another pro. And then the other one, this is kind of related to the culture comment, but I think it's enough that we can separate it out, which is that in general, large cities are more accepting and people are more open-minded.
Oh, 100%. It's wild being in other cities and seeing how close-minded. But remember, exposure fuels growth.
Yeah.
And definitely open-mindedness. You're not going to be open-minded if you've been exposed to the same thing. Everything else is just going to feel foreign and weird. And that's,
well, if you're not exposed to something, if you've got beliefs that are erroneous or whatever, if nothing ever challenges your beliefs, then you have no reason to change them. And in a large city, something's constantly in your face challenging your beliefs.
Yeah, and you have to decide whether you're cool or not with certain things because it's happening, it's out of your control. It's just
and if your beliefs are being challenged, basically internally or externally, you have to defend your beliefs on kind of a daily basis. Whereas if you're out in the country and the only people you're hanging out with are people that think exactly like you, no one's ever challenging your beliefs. You never really have to grow.
Sure, and they probably drive pickup trucks.
Yeah, which, what you really need to do is you need to get a second pickup truck, but just put it up on blocks out front.
Oh God.
Actually, no, don't get a pickup truck. I'm thinking like a 1974 Chevelle.
This is a nice neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. People have People have nice cars here.
How many fridges do you have?
When I moved in, there was none.
Okay, you need to buy like 4 or 5, only one of which needs to be working.
I'll tell you a little bit more about the fridge fucking debacle. They took the laundry, they took the refrigerator. It was wild. Somebody just told me to get a gun rack. I actually am like looking into gun ownership because the other night I woke
Why?
up. The other night I woke up. It's like 3:00 in the morning. There's motion lights outside, and I'm like, it's 3:00, and I'm not used to that shit. Like I have a doorman. What do I need to fucking to worry about anything? So I'm like, okay, so someone's outside. Obviously, there's a motion light. Someone tripped it. It must be somebody who must have seen some activity in the house that came by late at night to see what's going on, and maybe they'll try some locks. There's no car in the driveway. It's in the garage. This is before the truck. Truck is fresh. It's last night. And that's a nice looking truck. But I'm convinced 3:00 in the morning, somebody's out here. I can't find him. I'm looking out the windows. So I go to the bedroom window and I peer down, like down right in front of the house. And there's 2 deer just chilling out, eating grass. But fuck, I was shook. I was scared for a little bit. I was convinced there was someone outside. And
Don't
only
buy a
in that
gun.
moment, it only made sense to my logical, sleepy brain that someone was investigating late at night, like what had been happening with the house, looking for
Don't buy a gun. There's no need for it.
maybe a dog. Doria says I should get a dog. I would get.
Don't get a dog either.
I mean, we talked extensively about dog ownership.
Yeah.
Piss some people off.
Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say I hate dogs. So.
I'd rather get a goat, so I don't have to mow.
Oh, I got a story for you when you talk about goats. So one of our firm's clients was a lawyer, and the way that we knew him was our firm does some work in the insurance markets where we do audits of a number of insurance companies. That's not important for this story. But we knew this guy through insurance. He was a lawyer, and it was a city somewhere in Florida where there was a parcel of land kind of on the outskirts of the city, but still like an urban area or whatever. He wanted to buy this land and then develop it and do kind of like a mixed use kind of development with like apartments and like retail on the bottom floor and then apartments and everything like that. So he goes to the city council, says, hey, this is what I would like to do. And they weren't interested. They said, well, the land's zoned for agriculture, so we're not approving you for mixed use residential and stuff like that. He owns the land. So now he's not going to be able to develop it and make all the money that he wants. And so this dude had plenty of money as it was. It's not like he was poor before this. So what he decided to do was, you know what? Screw these guys. It's zoned for agriculture. So he built a small barn, fenced in everything, and bought a shitload of goats. And just as like as an FU to the city council, look at what's the most obnoxious animal that I can get. Goats. So now he's got hundreds of goats on this parcel it's still like in the city, but it's zoned agricultural. So he's got all these goats in this thing, and goats reproduce a lot and they make noise and everything like that. But the city can't do anything about it because that's what they.
Sure.
And so what he ends up doing is he's got all these goats or whatever, and apparently in Florida, I think Caribbean culture and also possibly Middle Eastern culture. I could be wrong about this one, so don't hold me to it, guys.
Okay.
But Caribbean culture, definitely, goat meat is really common. And so what he found was I can sell these goats for a lot of money. They're making more of themselves. I don't have to do anything, and then I can just sell them. And so what he would do is when he would go to parties with his wife or whatever, so he still had a law practice, he still did the insurance or whatever, but when he went to parties and introduced himself to new people, he'd be like, yeah, I'm Mr. So-and-so. Well, what do you do? I'm a goat farmer. Just to piss off his wife. So he ends up having all these goats or whatever, just making tons of money or whatever. And about a year goes by, maybe a little longer.
Okay.
And so he goes back to the city council. The city council's like, hey, you got to stop doing this. And he says, you guys told me it was zoned for agricultural. That's what I'm doing. And so enough time goes by that he goes back to the city council and says, so do you want to revisit that whole redevelopment plan that I brought to you guys a while back? You know, building the apartments and whatnot. And yeah, it gets approved. And he sells all the goats. And what he tells one of the partners at my firm after this all goes up, he's like, I don't know, man. Like, I was making more money like farming goats than I'm making on this development.
I believe that.
But he didn't do this to make money. He just did it as an FU to the city council. But whenever somebody mentions goats, I just think about a guy fencing in a city property and farming goats, not for any other reason than for spite, and ending up being successful at it, and also the like being able to go to parties and be like, yeah, I'm a goat farmer.
You've just been declared in the comments the winner of the best story. I will agree. That is a great fucking story. I wish I had the time to farm goats. I really want chickens, actually. Just fresh eggs, but who knows if that's going to happen. All right, we've been talking about cities. You're talking about goats now. We're kind of talking about the suburbs and the countryside.
Let's skip over the suburbs.
So you grew up much more rural, but only by about
Yo, we were 15 minutes apart from each other.
Yeah, I'd ridden my bicycle as a kid to your house.
Right.
But you were more in the mountains
Mm-hmm.
Than I was. And you had one neighbor next door, but then you had like a mile where there wasn't enough.
For more than half of my life before I left New York, I lived on a dirt road. An actual dirt road.
Road.
Yeah, it wasn't paved until I was probably like 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah. So let's talk about the country life and the obviously your parents chose to live in that area.
They've continued to choose living there. Like my mom has the means to be able to move wherever she wants, and she's thought about it. And she's like, you know what? I'm actually just really happy out here.
No, it's a great area, great place, and that's I have that sentiment about this area that I'm in so far, but I don't know it as intimately as she knows your area, your former area. But why is she staying there over moving somewhere more urban or even more densely suburban?
Well, 3 factors. The first, I can't confirm for sure, but I would have to say that there's this is personal to my mom, which is going to be just the inertia of already having a place, already having it fully furnished and everything like that, not wanting to have to go through the hassle of a move, plus having it pretty much paid off and just the familiarity. So not having to take on a new note, find a new place, go through the move. But what she would say is she likes her neighbors. She likes the quiet. She likes that she lives on a mountain. She can go for a hike pretty much any day where she can just walk through the woods and be completely alone and go to the top of a mountain and have a great view. Take the dogs for a walk. It's quiet, sometimes eerily quiet, but she's got bird feeders and gardens and all these things that you can't have in a city. She's got tons of space, and it's beautiful out there. And I'm just going to say it again because I value it so much. Whenever I go back home, I love how quiet it is.
Yeah, I still hear these crickets. I thought I was having an issue with electricity because it was this humming noise, like this high-pitched humming noise. It's crickets.
Yeah.
And it's cold out. It was kind of weird. I get it, though, because, I grew up a little more cul-de-sac-y suburban, but not by very much. We were surrounded by trees and you could hike. And I really value being able to walk outside and be able to do that, which is cool as shit. And pet ownership. We talked about owning pets. I'm not a big pet person, but I will say owning a pet in the suburbs of the country is way better. You don't have to pick up their shit in the sidewalk.
You also could just let them out in the yard.
When a dog pisses on a sidewalk, it makes a puddle. When a dog pisses in your backyard, you don't know about it. It just goes away. In the summertime when it's hot at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, my building smells like dog piss. Because everybody brings their dogs out at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. The dog's pissing the fucking sidewalk, and the sun's just shining on it.
And then it just wafts in.
And the humidity is just dog urine.
That's wonderful.
I don't smell it from the apartment, but when you're at ground level, you can smell it.
Yeah.
So you have this thick, urine.
Oh, no, I know exactly what it's like because downtown Charleston during the summer, with all the carriage horses, you'll have some like the roads where they kind of have the horses do their pickups and drop-offs is where the horses pee the most. And you'll have certain streets where even if it hasn't rained in Charleston in a week and a half, you'll have puddles. And yeah, you just walk down like there's a couple blocks that once you live here, you learn to avoid. But yeah, like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night or whatever, it's still hot. And you'll just get hit with like this wave of like vaporized horse piss.
I always thought living along Central Park South was a luxurious place to live. But that's where they dock all the horse and buggies. So I know exactly what you're talking about. What is that, Meeting Street where they have all the horses?
Yeah. Like corner of Meeting and Market, roughly. Like really it's like Market and Church, if I can remember. I don't know. I have not been to downtown Charleston. No, I work downtown Charleston, but my office is not like the bar party area of Charleston at all.
Sure, fair enough. If you guys are watching live, I want to know some benefits, some positives, some pros of living in the country or the suburban / quasi-suburban rural areas versus living in the city. I think we got a decent number of people. I don't know if anybody's live or watching that follow on YouTube. I know follow on TikTok. That live in suburban areas. There's a huge amount of the United States that are suburban, and governing a suburban area versus governing an urban area is very different. Which is the reason why one of the reasons why people are super divided politically. But all
right, so we got the pros is going to be quiet. I'm going to say cost of living is going to be lower. You're going to get more house, more apartment, more land, more just everything for lower. Food costs, gas costs, everything else is lower. What are the cons of living out in the country? I've got a few, but you go.
Well, if you're working in a city, I don't know what types of industry are supported in countryside. Like, what do you work at a country store?
Manufacturing. There's, at least in Charleston, a lot of the manufacturing is kind of out in the country because you can get warehouse space, you can get cheap land and cheap warehouse space, and like what do you need to be in the city for if you're making car parts?
Okay, true. Yeah, car parts. I mean, my office is in the garment district, so it's a manufacturing for textiles.
Yeah, but that has legacy. That the garment district goes back 130, 150 years.
Well, the current mayor is trying to move it 15 minutes into Brooklyn. So
the what?
The current mayor, De Blasio, is trying to move the garment district. And
why? Why are you messing with where people are? Who cares?
Well, they're putting in a whole new warehouses and bullshit, and they think that people are going to rent so many offices in the Midtown area because obviously offices are on the incline, which clearly they are not.
No, that's yeah.
It's not.
Commercial real estate is a bad sector to be in right now.
WeWork is upside down right now.
Well, WeWork has all sorts of problems, but just the commercial real estate sector in general is not doing well, especially since now that people are working from home and realizing that working from home is viable for a lot of industries that really hadn't considered it before. There's a lot of companies that might have rented 2 or 3 floors of office space that now are like, we don't need all this space. We can get away with a floor or a half floor or nothing. And just supply and demand. Supply has stayed the same. Demand has gone way down.
Yeah. I could tell you though, I could work from home. Obviously I'm in this. It's a
void.
It's a Well, I moved some shit out of the way here. Like I got a computer on the floor,
You need to
laptop.
put like a mattress or something in there to dampen the sound a little bit.
Well, it's empty. It's empty. There's a desk and a couple and computer parts in here. But it's a queen size bedroom. It's got a closet. And the entrance to the attic is here actually. But I actually plan to put the podcast studio, because I don't have the same setup in the house right now that I do in my office. I plan to put the podcast studio in the basement, and there's basically 3 different areas in the basement, in addition to the garage, that could be like really cool to set up a little podcasting area. I plan to have a wet bar in the basement, pool table, ping pong.
That'd be really sweet.
Maybe like a movie screening area. The basement in this place is larger than my apartment in Manhattan. So
Right. So your mortgage is probably comparable to what you're paying in rent, and look how much more you're getting.
but it's also less. It's comparable, but still less than what I was paying in rent. And this is a mortgage payment, so it's basically a deposit into a savings account minus the cut of interest.
Which the cut of interest is really high right now, but that'll go down over time.
Yeah, but also the interest rates are super low. I was talking to my friend today, and he's in the Albany, the Capital Region area in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what did your parents get on what was their interest rate on their mortgage? He's like, I don't know, but I talked to my friend who bought a place a while back, and she had good credit. Her interest rate was 11%.
That's insane.
And he went for a mortgage recently, and he's like, it was 2.65. So
yeah,
I'm like, trust me, what you want to do right now is get away with as little down as possible, and it's free money, man. Like it's it doesn't make sense right now to not buy.
I'm in the market in the next 8 months.
It only makes, again, everything is super fluid. You could buy and live in a place for 8 months and move, and you wouldn't be making money, but you wouldn't be losing as much money as if you rented for 8 months.
Completely agree.
So, which is wild. Like, who's going to live in a place for less than 8 months? Unless it's like you're subletting a bedroom.
Yeah,
so,
no, my rent here, my lease here ends in June, and I've already decided I'm not renewing my lease. I'm buying somewhere. It's just a matter of where.
So I have a question here that says, I was hoping you can give me some advice. I recently rented an apartment and was charged a hefty fee. I later saw that agent post the same apartment with no fee. Clearly bait and switch.
Not necessarily.
Me again. Yup. 818. I'm guessing you're talking about Manhattan. I looked the agent up and she's not licensed. What should I do? I need more details. It to me does not seem clearly like bait and switch. Bait and switch, by the way, is a legal term, and it means advertising a fake apartment, so something that doesn't exist. And then when someone contacts you, you're switching them. So you're baiting them with a fake listing, and you're switching them somewhere else. So what happens a lot of times is in New York City, where an apartment might last 6 hours on the market, sometimes less, like realistically, sometimes less. Somebody contacts you, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I think it's available. Let's meet today at 4:00. And then you call management at 4:00 because you listed it at 11 a.m. You call management at 4:00 and you're like, hey, can we get access? Like, oh, we took an application an hour ago. That's very common. It's not illegal, and it sucks. It sucks. The agent isn't baiting you in this scenario I'm giving you. The agent isn't baiting you in.
No, because the apartment that they're advertising did exist, and it was on the market at the time, and it eventually got sold.
It's not malicious. They're not baiting you in maliciously. It's just how the market works. Now, if an agent, I've seen listings where so what I like to do with my clients, because I'm, for lack of a better phrase, an expert, what I like to do with my clients is I'm going to give them a list of places I'm going to show them. Not everything I can give them a listing for. A lot of them are, because there's so many listings that come so fast, are new and they're not online. But what I'm also going to ask my client for is I'm going to say, hey, let me know what else you're looking at. And I'll take you, if I can take you there, I will. If I can't, and it looks like a good place, I'll tell you to go see it also. Because I understand what the market is. I'm not going to discourage you from seeing a place if it's good, because I'm going to show it to you and you're still going to be hung up on that place. But a while back, I had somebody send me, and I've been doing this so long, I know apartments really well. So somebody can usually tell me an address. I can tell them who the owner is, and oftentimes what the apartment looks like, just because I've seen a gazillion apartments. But a while back, somebody sent me a listing, and I couldn't find it, and the building number wasn't listed. It was just like cross streets or a neighborhood or something. And I spent an afternoon staring at the pictures, trying to figure out what landlord it was. Everything seemed legit. It was a legit agent, licensed agent. And I finally looked through, and I've been staring at the pictures, reverse Google image searching the pictures, like maybe, they're from something. And I realized there was a palm tree in the distance out of one of the windows. Now, for anybody who knows anything in Manhattan, we don't have palm trees, unless it's an expensive restaurant.
Yeah, but then it's indoors.
Yeah,
There's no.
But that would be a bait and switch. Obviously, a fake apartment, because no apartments have a view of palm trees in Manhattan. That's a bait and switch ad, and that's illegal. It's illegal to bait and switch.
It would also be illegal to take a picture of someplace and be like, here's this 3-bed, 3-bath in Midtown Manhattan, 1,200 square feet, $1,100 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that just doesn't exist.
It's a fake. Yeah, it's a fake ad. So it's me again. Yep. Said, why would she post the apartment she rented me? She knows it's gone because she rented it to me herself. Well, that sounds a bit sketchy there. Doesn't mean she bait and switched you. It could mean that she's trying to bait and switch people moving forward.
Do we know it's the exact apartment?
But I need, it's me again. Yep. We would need to talk off air where I could get a little more of the specific details. But either way, at the time, here's my thinking. At the time you saw an apartment, you decided in that moment it was worth paying a broker fee. You liked the apartment. To you, you agreed, I like this apartment. I like this apartment. It's worth this much money. And then you moved in. And then you saw a better deal somewhere else. I just bought a truck for how much money? And I could go back online and keep looking for trucks and find the same truck for less. Does that mean I got ripped off with the deal that I got? No, at the time, I thought that was a deal. I might be upset with myself, but I'm not going to be upset with the guy that sold it to me.
Right. The market moves after you make a purchase.
Yeah, it is what it is. Again, I would need more details to know if it was malicious. Also, in New York City, this is the crazy part about New York City, and I have agents like this. I have agents that have American names. We have a guy we call Mike. His actual name is Bosnian and difficult to pronounce. So his business cards say Mike, but then in quotations in the middle have his real name. So a lot of times you may meet somebody, especially if you're corresponding through Facebook Marketplace, so they have a Facebook profile under whatever name. You may search that name against the state database, and you may not find their actual name. I have a guy, his name's Roger. His legal name is Rogelio. So, most people are not going to be familiar with the name Rogelio. So he goes by Roger. If you search Roger, you're not going to get any results. But again, I'm not saying whatever happened wasn't bad, wasn't malicious. You could have been a target of a scam. Who knows? I don't know the details, but I'm just letting you know from the other side of things what could have happened. All right, what else we got on cities and suburbs? I feel like we're running out of steam on this topic.
Well, we're also kind of at or above our time, so.
Yeah, we are. Something we could talk about again in a future podcast. I'm glad I was able to share a little bit about where I am. I don't know if you can see where you are right now, but the wallpaper in here, and ultimately probably the walls are going to be removed from this room, so the wallpaper isn't going to stand a chance. But the wallpaper are like tiny little flowers. It's not an attractive look actually at all. So I'm hoping you can't see that in the.
I can see a pattern, but I can't see what kind of pattern it is.
Not Magic Eye, that's for certain. Definitely not Magic Eye. Oh shit! I missed some extra comments. It doesn't make sense. The same post apartment currently living out is no fee. Well, it is possible that the apartment was advertised with a fee when you moved in, and now they're advertising it as no fee because the landlord has agreed to pay their broker fee. But again, so you're going to report somebody because they don't come up in DOS. You may want to touch base with that person. But again,
give them a chance to answer the questions first. Don't just report somebody without them having a chance to defend themselves. Because it's possible that it's legit. And if they give you bad answers, then yeah, go ahead and report them. But give them a chance. Let them bury themselves if they really did screw up.
Yeah, it's just wild. Like we get reported to, like once every year or two for shit, and it's like it's typically what happened was the consumer did not understand what we were explaining to them, and they're like, oh, like so. I'll give you an example. In Manhattan, it's illegal for a taxi to refuse you service. So if a taxi does refuse you service, you can report them. Now, every time you get in a taxi, they play a commercial that says if you refuse service by a taxi, you can report them. Here's the number. And a taxi code is 4 digits. It's usually a number, a letter, and then 2 numbers. So 4T26. What happens is people don't understand that an available taxi, when it's on the road, those numbers, those 4 digits illuminate. So you see it down the block and 4T26 is lit up and nothing else on the top of that taxi, that is an available taxi. If that taxi slows down next to you and then speeds off, they're probably refusing your service. However, what happens a lot is those digits will not be illuminated, and the side digits, which say off duty. Now, the off duty illumination is about 4 inches, and all those letters off duty, the 7 letters plus the space, off duty, are difficult to read at a distance. So if you're not a regular taxi taker, you may not realize that this is an off duty taxi. Also, if someone's in a taxi, the digits and the off duty are not illuminated. So nothing's illuminated on the top of the taxi unless there's an ad banner on the top, which can be illuminated. So what happens a lot is taxis get reported for refusing service who are occupied or who are off duty. And the issue is people don't understand exactly what's going on in that taxi. They just think that for whatever reason, the taxi slowed down next to them, which maybe they're just
happens all the time in New York City.
People slow down, they hit the brakes, and then speed off. So a lot of times people just don't know. They just don't know the laws, and they want to complain because they feel they were done unjustly. But long story short, it's me again. Yep. Shoot me a DM, shoot me a text. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'd love to hear the details. I'd love to let you know about that agent. We can look them up on the company they work for. At least give them a chance. But my thinking is, when you decided to move into the apartment, you accepted that as a deal. And you were okay with it. If you weren't okay with it, you wouldn't have signed on. And you wouldn't have moved in. So my thinking is, at the time you were okay with it. Something's changed subsequent to that. But you made that decision. So that's that. All right. You got anything else you want to add?
No, not really. I'm glad that the people enjoyed the story about the goat farmer, because that's probably my favorite story that one of the partners has told me. And I'm just always entertained by this dude who's a lawyer at parties with other lawyers. So you can just imagine the crowd or whatever. Be like, yeah, I'm a goat farmer.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in South Carolina. If you're a farmer versus...
No, this was in Florida.
Okay, well, either way, if you're a farmer, same thing down there. if you're a farmer versus an attorney, you occupy different circles.
Very much so.
So on that note, I wish everybody a good weekend, and I think you should go get some goat meat. If you don't eat a lot of goat meat, it's actually fantastic. And goat cheese is nice too.
Yeah.
So on that note, James, I'll catch you later.
Yeah, this new time's working pretty well. We'll do Tuesday next week, probably take Thursday off.
Thursday, Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Let's play it by ear. I may have a badass podcast studio set up.
No. I have no idea what I'm doing on Thanksgiving yet. I have no plans. I have some ideas, but I haven't taken no steps to make them reality.
All right. Well, the door is always open. And to the rest of you guys, thank you and the congrats. They're still saying James won this round. And got a comment that says Cuba leaving.
Yeah.
I'm Cuba out of here. All right, guys. See you later. James, I'll catch you soon.
Cheers.
All right, adios.
All right. How do we do? What do you think? We sway you to stay in the city, stay in the country, move to the city, move to the country? If you're moving to the city, though, don't forget, let me know. That's what I do for a living. But either way, like I said, let me know in the comments what you think. You're a city person, you're a country person. I'm going to know.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.